Hey everyone, it's Emily and John Myers from Write Better Together, and we have a special announcement. We are going to have a very special guest for our Christmas Eve episode.
Oh, that must be why I'm ringing this bell like I'm at the Salvation Army. It doesn't sound like the Salvation Army.
It does.
We have a very special guest for our Christmas Eve, December 24th episode. Judy Go Wong, the author, the actress. You know her from Veep and House of Cards and so many other things. Her latest book is Lights, Camera, Action, Secrets to Master on Camera Presence Like a Pro. She teaches you makeup. She teaches you how presence, like how to... you think Emily and John Myers have presence. She will teach you to have real presence on the camera. And we're so looking forward to her. We're honored that she's going to spend our Christmas Eve with us.
And she's going to be talking about being a Christian creative in Hollywood, as well as why therapy is important this time of year.
Yes.
So we're very excited, and we hope you join us.
Welcome, everybody, to Write Better Together Afterthought. Hey, look, everybody, it's Emily Brooks.
Hello, John Myers.
Hey, sorry I mispronounced your name. We said what we were going to call this Afterthought, and I already don't remember.
I think what we said was how you... it was how you are inspired by others when you get out of your bubble.
There
Finding
you go.
Inspiration outside of your bubble.
That's right. At least you remembered it. I did not even remember it.
It was there somewhere.
How do you inspire people when you get out of your... How are you inspired by other writers when you get out of your bubble?
I mean, I hope I inspire others, but that's not the point of this episode. So we went to Writer Fest in Nashville over the weekend.
I remember that.
Highly recommend. It was a 2-day conference at Belmont University created by Sarah Weigel and Amy McConnell, who have been on the podcast. And they had just such a wonderful list of creators who came to speak, to give their time and their energy and love to support these authors. And I think we both came away very inspired. I mean, I haven't even told John Myers this, but I went home after the first day, I went and had dinner with my parents and ended up spilling all this stuff that was building up from before the conference that like finally I was able to put words to.
Oh,
and
nice.
Because of two particular sessions that we'll talk about, but then the next day I had even more emotions, so it was wonderful.
So I was the same way. I called two of my friends and I just vomited all over them how wonderful everything was.
Yeah.
And like then so that was Saturday, and then Sunday I wrote a bunch, and
nice,
because I had to use that inspiration.
Yeah.
And one of the people that we're going to talk about, I got to get 49 books done pretty quick. So I don't have time to waste. I can't waste a single day. That's how on fire I was. Before we talk about individual things, I want to pre-apologize if we were at your session and we don't mention it, because an afterthought is a limited amount of time, and so they will come up in future episodes. I'm sure I have a list of everyone, but we just can't get to everyone in 20, 30 minutes.
We went to, I think we were only in like 2 sessions together.
Correct. And so we went
besides
to
the keynotes, but
24 hours of things, and we can't talk about that in 24 minutes. You just can't.
Yeah.
But the two big overarching takeaways were collaboration, of course, and I'll let you talk about that. But the thing I noticed, and we haven't talked, I heard the word vision so many times that it popped, like even on the first day, that it, not just in sessions, like, here, come take my picture over by this window. Oh, yeah, I get your vision. Hey, are you going to lunch afterwards? Yeah, what do you want? Oh, I want Mexican. Oh, I get that vision. Like, I heard the word vision continually, which that's what happens when you hang out with creatives. And if you're just writing alone, solitary, or if you're in a writing group of 7 people, you're not going to hear it that much. When you're in 300 people, words like that pop out.
So were you at the? I don't think you were at the Vision for Writers session with Mimi McCarley,
Correct. I was not. No, correct.
because that was one of the sessions that I went home and talked about.
Oh,
Um, because it was all about really focusing, what do you really want out of this, and not what do you think other people have told you that you need or that you should want. Because as you all know, if you listen to us, we try not to give prescriptive advice, or descriptive advice. Is that the right word? We try not to tell you exactly like what.
We avoid prescriptive advice.
Yeah, like we'll say like, hey, this worked well for me, but that doesn't mean that it works well for you. And I think what a lot of things I've seen is that writers will assume that like, oh, you have to have the same vision as me, and you have to have the same goals, and therefore you have to do things the same way. And she was very much like, you need to figure out what it is that you want, because until you know that, you're just going to walk around in circles because you're not going in a straight line. And it was powerful for me. And she was also the most like energetic, passionate speaker I think I've ever seen. She was great. So I loved that.
Next.
Trying to think of how to transition from that. So I didn't go to any sessions on collaboration, did you?
So so yes. So the screenwriting one that I went with, not the keynote, which we'll talk about towards the end, but the one that I went to with Randa Newman, not Randy Newman, Randa Newman and Korby Lenker. They're two filmmakers. They're married now. She is, I don't want to say more of the producer, but she's officially the producer. Yeah, I'll say more of the producer. She's officially the producer, where he's the writer. And they had laurels from eight or nine different festivals, Sundance. They had been to Austin, and the thing that my biggest takeaway, what he and she would talk about, was it is collaborative 100%. And he even recommends not writing scripts by yourself, because now you have two people invested in the script. And so all of your efforts to market it and to query it and to do things, now you got two people doing that. And
that's like Sophie and Fiona.
Yeah, like exactly. And
from our previous episode.
Yeah, and so you have two people doing that, and those people, which when we talk about Aaron Covington towards the end, he said the same thing. Those people, and just volunteer to be a PA on the set, volunteer to be an extra, because you'll start to learn who shows up on time and who's reliable and who doesn't show up for the call sheet. They also talked about budgeting and other things that we won't talk about now. And but those people become your core film tribe, even if you're from Nashville, but you're going to Atlanta to film, or you're going to Columbus, Ohio to film. You're like, oh, I need a sound person. Let's take that person because he did well at the last thing. And that's how you build your sound tribe, or your filmmaking tribe.
Well, can we mention Aaron Covington, because he kind of had a similar thing where he was writing with a partner, and then that partner won a Sundance award.
So Ryan Coogler, who wound up directing Creed, which he co-wrote with Aaron Covington, and they were in the same cohort, and so they were friends. They were, first of all, my efforts to get rid of the word networking.
Yeah.
They were already friends,
right?
That hung out at Waffle House or at IHOP. Jay New, the director of I forget the big long department name they have at Belmont, but the director of film studies and media and film production at Belmont, saying he was from that same cohort. That was the connection that brought Aaron here, and here to the festival, and they wound up working together. Even so, it popped up organically. So there's two things that are not on Aaron Covington's IMDb. So if anyone says, "Hey, you don't have credits," yeah, but I have paychecks. Right? And so Into the Spider-Verse, and the first one, and Space Jam. Yeah. He did uncredited rewrites. I'm not sure they were uncredited on screen, but they're uncredited on IMDb. And but hey, the paycheck's cleared, right?
Yep.
And he did a lot of work. And on his sitcom, his NBC sitcom, Jay did some. If I understood everything that they were talking about, Jay did some uncredited punch ups and stuff, or helped. And he had a web series too, so it might be confusing which series was which. But that's what happens when you collaborate with other people. Is everyone lifts everyone else up.
Yeah, and I don't know too, like if IMDb would also say that he's worked on a video game. Like
Did.
He's okay, but he's all over the place, and he's being creative with, okay, I can work in this medium, and that's so cool. But what you were saying about networking, like we all have a common interest. So it really makes sense for us to make friends, not just, oh, you can do something for me.
Right. It's the people that you hang out with are equally or like-minded creatives.
Yeah.
And you all spur each other on, and it inspires everyone. And you don't get that if you're writing alone.
And part of the beauty of this festival is that they also had lunches together. And there was lots of time, like in the hallways and stuff, that you could do. They also had a bingo game. I don't have it on me, but they had a bingo game that helped people like connect with others, so that you could ask people questions and it not be awkward. Like, hey, on my bingo card, there you go. On my bingo card, I'm looking for a Belmont graduate. Are you a Belmont graduate? Which I actually met a ton of Belmont students and tons of graduates as well.
Or a songwriter or a producer or whatever.
Yeah. So it helps you ask those questions without like a natural way to ask those questions, which I thought was really neat.
So can I finish what I was going to say about Aaron Covington, and we'll just dispatch that part of it? And so that was a huge takeaway. And the other takeaway was, and I've said this before out loud in meetings, we go to grad school to write our script, and we workshop our script, and that ain't the job. Right. The job is you write other people's stuff. And I've always said that we needed to have classes where there's 20 people in the screenwriting class. 20 of them are producers, or half of them are producers, the other half are the writers, and the next semester you switch it. And you're writing other people's stories, because that's what the job is. Every job he had, he never got from a query. First of all, it was all from a connection that he had made. And he has never, other than his web series, none of it came from any of his scripts. Creed was a collaboration that started in grad school. But all the other stuff was, hey, we really liked what you did on this video game. We want a sample from you so that we can see you work on this television series or whatever. So you're not writing your own stuff in the screenwriting world.
Yeah, it's a really interesting world, and how different it is from novel writing.
That's all I have to say about that.
Hey everybody, it's John Myers from Write Better Together. Look everybody, it's Emily Brooks.
Hello, John Myers.
We're interrupting the internet, the entire internet, to tell them about something big.
So we're going to have a new webinar in January of 2025 on January 16th, which is going to be the third Thursday at 5 Pacific, 7 Central, and 8 Eastern. And we're going to be talking about perfectionism.
We've spoken to so many people in our audience, and in person and online, that struggle with having to have it perfect before they show it to anybody, before they send it off to query, before they do anything with it. And poppycock nonsense is what I say. What do you say, Emily?
Yeah, and it shouldn't stop us from feeling like we are writers too. We can say, I'm a writer, even if you don't feel like your work is perfect.
And so we're going to work through that on the webinar with your help, because you're going to be there, just like on our last one we did. Your shining bright faces will be there asking us questions, and we'll work through the discussion.
Yes. So if you want to join us, you can go to writebettertogether.com/contact and fill out the form and just put January webinar. and we will add you to the list. We will send you a link on the day of. We'll also be live streaming on Facebook and YouTube.
Great. I'll be there.
Me too. We hope to see you all there.
Yeah.
So that was the last keynote, and I can't leave this conversation without talking about the first keynote, which was William Paul Young, the author of The Shack, who just turned out to be a wonderful speaker. I mean, everybody in the audience was just captivated, and when they were leaving, everybody was like, "Man, that was so good." And he didn't even come with the way that he presented it sounded like he didn't come with a script, he didn't come with a plan. He was just like, let's see where the Holy Spirit takes this, and just said what he felt like needed to be said. And I have just like so many things that he said that really hit me hard. One of the things, and I'm not going to go through his whole keynote, like, but I would just say that when I went to my parents' house that night, I talked about the vision session. I talked about William Paul Young's session, because he is he is a writer who writes from his heart without any ambition besides that. He wrote The Shack for his daughters for Christmas because he had nothing else to give them for Christmas. So one of the things that he says is your identity is distinct from your product, which I think we've talked about that too. Is like you have to separate yourself from your work, but he embodies that.
We talked that on the Renee episode.
Yes. He talks a lot about being authentic and telling the story that matters to you and not trying to please other people. But I mean, so much of his stuff was not just about writing, but about life in general. Man, I could go on and on about it, but it was just really important to me because I'm in a place where I feel like I have these goals that I have tied up with my identity. And for him to be like, your goals can't be tied up to your identity. Your product isn't tied up to your identity. You do the writing and you do the creative work with no expectation of what happens afterwards. It's that journey before destination that we've talked about over and over again, that it's like I still have to actually move from my brain to my heart. And I think it really helped me. And also it was just really beautiful. I think people didn't expect him to share his testimony. He went deep and honest about all the stuff that had happened to him, the things that he had done that are like shameful, that like people don't talk about. And he talked about it, and he even got teary at one point. Huh?
People were in tears.
Oh yeah, people were in tears. Like it was really moving. So I'm just so grateful that they had him, and that just speaks to the quality of and the attention that they give to these speakers that they're choosing. That they seem to really care about the impact that they're going to give on everyone, and he was just a great example of that. And I'm sure it will come up again in later episodes because my brain is still wrapping around it.
All right, so we have time to talk about one more. Is that about right?
Yeah, and I know which one we're going to talk about.
I'm already crying, so
Oh.
Go ahead.
So one of the speakers, and here's a funny thing that I haven't told you yet. I wasn't going to go to this session. It was the session on that you can make a living writing by Kiersten Modglin. And I was set up to go to a different session. I was talking to my TC at lunch, and she was like, hey, I'm going over to this session. And I was like, you know what? I actually think I do want to go to that session. And also there was a big line for the other one. And I was like, that's just going to be really crowded. And I just decided last second to go to this one. And I'm so glad I did.
Well, this one was full too.
It was, and it was in the large theater. But Kiersten Modglin, if you all don't know, like she self-published author who is making a full-time income. She said at one point that she retired her husband.
So I have all the numbers. Let me.
Yes, thank you.
While I'm not crying, let me start in with all the numbers. So she has written 49 books. She takes a week off in between each one of them since 2016 in 8 years. 48 are out. 49 is coming out now as we speak. And the first 3 were indie published, and then she was fine with what they did, but she thought that she could do better. And her 4th book she did herself, and she calls herself an indie publisher as well. And when you hear these numbers, you'll find out why. And so book 4 outsold all 3 added up together, and then made enough money where she could buy the rights back for the first 3, and then it was gangbusters since then. Her number 1 seller. So let me finish about the husband. So on book 17, she finally broke even, and and she was able. Her husband was able to quit his day job, and then they could have a baby, and then he could be Mr. Mom, and she's still there in the house, so she doesn't work outside of the house, but he can they could raise the child together, and he could take on more responsibility because she writes like a maniac. And she's always
she said 17. It took 17 books to break even, and then 20 to make a profit.
Right. 17 to break even, 20 to make a profit. Her number 1 bestseller has sold 200,000 copies. Number 2 has sold 66,000. So see the gap in between 1 and 2. But she doesn't care if it sells 1 copy a day and she makes $4.
Yeah.
Her original vision was 100 books. Even if they all only make $4 a day, that's $400 a day. And it's all numbers, and it's all math, and it's genius. And I can't stop writing now. She writes all the time. And I got the impression she does very little sleep. She does all of her own marketing, like we do. Another session I was in said you need to spend 8 hours a week marketing. I think we do that. Between the 2 of us, I think we do. Anyway, so she takes off a week in between each one, and then on this one, because she's getting ready to write book 50 in 8 years, she's taking a month off because she wants to be super recharged for that, because she's in charge of her own time. Like if she has something that she recital for the child at school, she's in charge, and she's able to do that. Say some stuff because I just forgot what I was going to say.
She has very Sanderson energy to me.
Yes.
She's like, I write 8 hours a day. She's very methodical. She's very business minded, but also extremely passionate. Like she said that writing is her playtime. And when she's not writing, she's thinking about writing. And I think takes a special person. So it actually made me think I was both inspired, but also like, this isn't for everybody, right? This lifestyle that she's chosen is so beautiful and so specific, but it isn't for everybody. Not everybody wants to write 50 books.
But it is for me. And because
and so that's why I think it hits you so hard.
Yeah, and that's why I connected so much. And so she said it's kind of like how a stand-up comedian can't walk to lunch or walk downtown without seeing jokes everywhere. She scrolled through her phone, scroll, and of all these future ideas that she has, so she sees the world differently. Like, oh, that's a story. Oh, that's a title. Oh, that little bit of dialogue can work someday, and it all goes down. So she sees the world differently, because what Emily just said is 100% true. If she's sad, she writes. If she's bored, she writes. If she's waiting in line somewhere, which I hate to do, she writes. That's her fun. That's her fun.
Yeah.
And which that's how I am. Now the administration part and the necessary part, that's not always fun, but it's a I don't want to call it necessary evil. It's a necessary component, and but it's fun to write. And I don't play sports, and I don't have a hobby, right? We talked about that. That is my fun. And so I got to see someone else that was like me there.
Yeah. Oh, man. It's so good. I have a feeling there were a lot of people like you in the room who were like, okay, this is my dream, but can I do it? Because it feels like if writing feels like a hobby, it doesn't feel like you can actually make money doing it. And she like proved like, yes, you can. And so that was so inspiring. But to me, I think the main thing that I came away with, besides all of the things that we just talked about, is there was a point where she said, I knew that, well, first of all, the number 17, that it took her 17 books to break even, right? But then she also said she doesn't worry if one book doesn't do as well, because she's got a backlist of all these books that are doing well, and it's okay. So what I've realized is that as someone who's aspiring to be published, I tend to cling on to one book. And I'm like, I put so much, this is my baby, this is, and that's not what she's doing. And she is proving that you can't just cling to that one book. It's write the next book, write the next book, write the next book. And it's not your identity, and it's not your precious work. Even though you may feel very attached to it, that's perfectly normal and perfectly fine. But as far as success goes, you don't need to put everything, all of your stock into that one book. That you want to just keep writing and keep telling better and better stories, and it may take 17 books.
Right. And I've said that all along. Like, I'm not, whatever, my scripts are good, but they're not my precious darlings that I like. And yeah. So am I going to sell it to a producer that I might not care for? Sure, because I'll go make another baby. I don't need, like, it's not a big deal. And in her case, she's already got the next one done, and she's already working on the next one, right? So if this one flops, she doesn't care because she's got 2 more in the pipeline already. And gosh knows how many. The last thing I want to point out is, and this is a Emily Brooks thing as well, you can do anything for a season, for a time. And so when she went, now her season, 8 years for 48 books, if she keeps up the same rate, she'll hit her 100 books in 16 years. Where some people might say, well, my season's for the next 5 years, right? But she's still young, and at the end of that 16 years, and at book 100, then she can reassess what she wants to do, and she'll have the rest of her life to do whatever she wants.
Well, and she actually did mention slowing down. It doesn't sound like she slowed down, but she mentioned that she was like, I think I want sleep. So she did slow down so that she could have a more, manageable pace, but that pace for her is just so massive. She also did show that you don't need a publisher, and it depends on your personal needs, your genre, what you're aiming for. But I think it was an inspiring look at just alternative ways of publishing. Now, not everybody wants to go that route where you're doing your own book covers and you're hiring, she's investing her own money into each book, and not everybody can do that, but she showed that it is possible, and that was huge.
So that reminded me of one more thing, and it'll tie a nice bow on it with Aaron Covington. So she did it without a publisher, as you pointed out, which is what reminded me of that. She also did it without an agent this entire time, but now she has an agent with WME, the biggest agent, and because she has sold one of her books to be adapted for a film, and she was smart, and the agent was smart, and they're like, oh, she sold 1.5 million books. We didn't mention that. All of those books added up together have been 1.5 million so far. Yeah. And so she has an agent for her film deals now. And in her first meeting, on her first contract, so she has a high-powered WME agent, and the agent took care of all the normal everyday stuff, and then there were still things that Kiersten wanted, and she spoke up and said them. And then she told us that afterwards, in the hallway after this meeting, she got everything or almost everything that she wanted, which never happens. And but the agent told her, you ask for things that no one ever gets, like even seasoned seasoned authors, seasoned screenwriters will ask for and never get, so they just don't ask for them anymore. But she's like, I kept my mouth shut because I could see they were nodding in agreement with you. And I could see they were going along with it, and you're my client, so I kept my mouth shut. And but no one would have normally asked for that. Well, she didn't know to not ask for that, and good for her that she asked for what she wanted, and and that she got it. And to tie that back to Aaron Covington, he said, don't let other, this is a chapter in our next book, Emily, because I've already started it. I'm almost finished with it. Don't let other people limit your vision, or don't let other people. And just because that's the way it's always been done, that's the way grandma's always cut the turkey. You don't have to cut it that way. And she's living proof of that.
The other thing that I was going to mention, this is the last thing I'm going to talk about, is I also...
We have all the last things.
asked several people to be on the podcast.
Oh yeah. And that ties in together. I'll let you continue. But she was really big on community. Like she sends out Christmas cards, and which I want to do, by the way. And just she's collected this community over the years, and they're her core advertising team, right? Their word of mouth is her core advertising team. All right, continue.
Well, they all seemed really interested, so I'm excited to eventually announce who those people are. But I think I intentionally was looking for certain things that people could talk about a certain way. So, and in the guerrilla marketing session, which was also very good, he talked to everybody about getting on podcasts. And so I almost during the session, I almost went,
the Q&A
hey,
over.
come on my podcast. He was also like, and give away your books. And I was like, man, I wish I had my books so I could be, hey, somebody take these books off my hands.
That's great.
So, and he actually, his session was really short, so he gave us all his book. So I'm really interested in reading it. It's called Guerrilla Marketing for Authors. So
I want one.
Definitely worth checking out. Yeah.
I want one. So to put tie a bow on this for the third bow that we're tying on it, we saw people from our community.
Yeah.
We saw Lauren right here.
Yes.
We have two Laurens in our community, by the way. The Lauren from Sevierville that made us crochet things. She's also a young Lauren and creative. And then we saw Mytesia that you mentioned from Oklahoma City, and even though she's from Murfreesboro, and but we know her from there. And then we saw a publisher. I'm sorry, I've forgotten her name again, but she's from Arkansas, and that we met at Southern Festival of Books. And so people were like, our community was like being a little sub community where people have connected with us,
and we made new friends.
And we made new friends that'll be on our podcast.
Yeah.
Yay!
So get out of your bubble. That's your call to action. Look up festivals or conferences near you, get out of your bubble and meet some other writers. They will inspire you.
Yep. And then someday you can say, we
couldn't have done it without you.